was a sink or swim environment. It was your classic toughen up, man up, this is how we do it, very militant. You either prove that you can handle it or somebody else will. The mental health side was non-existent. People would get angry, they'd get frustrated, but you just had to deal with it. You know, nobody really talked about anything. I've always been a very calm, very reserved person. It would take a lot to really rattle my cages. Did happen a few times.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. Yeah, really good.
The journey was good in?
Yeah, journey was fine. So I'm local. We're only half hour here, and of course you got the lovely G-Tech Stadium around the corner, which is my home away from home. So yeah, nice easy journey.
How are you liking the new stadium?
It's really good. It's really good. Like, obviously for a long time when it first opened, it was empty. Obviously no supporters allowed in and that, but I think now that people have been in it and experienced it for a good year and a half, it's really good. The location, the facilities, the access. I think it will allow London Irish to hopefully do some really special things in the coming years.
And then speaking of London Irish, the whole career there. How was it? How comes?
Yeah, it's interesting to look back now. So I grew up in Kent. That's where I played most of my rugby at Dartford Grammar School. And it just so happened that my school coach was friends with an Irish coach playing at Blackheath. So he asked him to come and watch me, said it was going really well, might be worth a look. Obviously Irish wouldn't have been the most local club. I mean, Kent you'd probably say would be maybe Saracens territory. But he came, saw my game, liked what he saw, and I was invited to come and start training with London Irish in the under-19s and the under-21s. And then they offered me a contract as I finished school. So that was July 2003. Spent the first year kind of commuting, 2 trains in, 2 trains out. Decided I couldn't do that anymore. Very, very early mornings, late nights. So moved across to Sunbury in 2004, and London Irish has been home ever since. I guess at the time where it came to me deciding to resign, looking at contract extensions and that, it was always the best decision to stay. Primarily for me. And then as I got older, as family came on board, wife and kids, for them as well. I think sometimes maybe the grass is greener when you move, and there's things like you maybe can earn a bit more money in that, but sometimes it's about more than that. And you talk about, again, towards the back end of my career, it's also about you start having one eye on the future and where you can actually build something going forwards that's going to last you for long after you finish retiring. So the decision to stay was always the right one for me at the times that I extended. And it's worked out that even after finishing playing, still heavily associated with the club as an ambassador. So we're not far off 20 years now, which is incredible when I just think about it now. Probably due another testimonial. I don't know if retired players can get a second testimonial. But I guess it's worked both ways, given a lot to the club have given a lot to me, and we continue to do that even off the pitch now as well. So, I guess maybe one of the rare cases where that loyalty is reciprocated both ways.
Is that something you've always kind of had, like as sort of like embedded from early on, that kind of loyalty? Yeah,
I'd say so. I think whether from a young age, ingrained in me by my parents, I'd like to say, loyalty has been quite a key commodity, I guess, in my life. And the loyalty piece is a very interesting one, because sports teams are businesses. They are about the X's and O's, they are about the numbers, they are about investing in assets so that they can deliver for the club, so the club can make money. But then the players also have to see themselves as, right, I've got this short window to do something I love, but only for a short period. So it's an interesting balance, and it will be different for every single case, and you can't really judge people on those decisions because you completely understand it. If a club X is going to offer 50, 100 grand more, why wouldn't you take that? And that's the nature of the business of sport.
What was the mentality like at the club when they go? What's the vibe like in the?
Yeah, it was difficult, especially I guess as someone who was staying. You ask the question, why do all these guys feel they need to leave? I wouldn't be able to tell you for a fact, but maybe the fact that the club weren't spending as much money in those periods, and we weren't doing as well. We kind of peaked around 2009, 2010, Heineken semi-finals, Premiership finals, things started to decline. So as an up-and-coming player, you're thinking, right, if I want to continue this, I probably need to go to a club that's at the top end of the table. And they might have been getting that message from elsewhere as well, from coaches, from agents saying, not only will you get paid more, but you'll also enhance your chances to stay in the England team or in the international teams.
Being in a high-performance environment, there's a lot of pressures that you will face. What sort of tips or tricks did you learn from coaches, or you just learn over time with age and experience?
The biggest one, I'm probably still learning it now, and especially when I'm coaching at my school, trying to relay that to the kids, because even they'll say to me, I had one of the boys the other day, he was like, so how do I deal with exactly what you've just asked, these kind of high pressure environments where, I get a bit nervous or a bit anxious about what I'm doing. And I kind of said, the biggest thing you can do is hone in on your technique. Practice, practice, practice. You won't be able to replicate the pressures of a game, but if your technique is to the point where it's pretty flawless, pretty subconscious, you're more likely to be able to handle those situations because you're not reacting to that situation. It is a picture that you've seen lots of times in training, and the more you replicate that in a game, you'll get used to dealing with it, and that will kind of start to relieve any pressure. So I said, we'll just replicate that in training as much as we can. We'll add as much pressure as we can. If it gets too easy, we'll make it more difficult. If it's too difficult, we'll scale it back to a point whereby, okay, I've got this. And then every time I do it in a game, hopefully it'll get easier and easier and easier. And I think that would be the trick. High performance it's about being able to deal with the pressures and to still execute. But that comes with having the skill set and then having done it repeatedly under that pressure as well. That is what the elite environment does. It takes the best of you, puts you in a high pressured environment and says, can you get the job done when the stakes are at their highest?
You're now doing the punditry, you're in the public eye. When you first start that, you don't have that muscle memory. Do you do reps of talking through what you're going to say or preparing for questions? You
rehearse a lot. I remember my very first game for BT. Obviously, you've got this kit that you use when you're up in the gantry. You have to learn what all the buttons do in that. I didn't have a clue what any of them did. You've got a button that you need to press when you want to talk to a producer or a director. I forgot to press it the first time I wanted to talk to him, and you're live on TV. So you actually end up talking to everyone. So you quickly get the director in your ear saying, you need to press that button, otherwise everybody can hear you. So you're always learning. But it is about practice, repetition. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get. I knew that coaching and the media were two areas that I really wanted to get into, but I knew I was going to need to work at them because as soon as you stand still, someone overtakes you. That's the same as back in playing. As soon as you stand still, the next kid is behind you, a new signing is coming in, and you end up watching more than you do playing, or you end up seeing other guys get the opportunity that you really want. So it's a similar mentality. You practice, do your preparation in the week so that come game day, come game time when you're pitch side broadcasting, you enjoy it, you're ready for it, you want to do a good job, but you're prepared for it as well.
Would you say you're motivated by fear?
I wouldn't say fear. Fear probably wouldn't be the right word, but I guess I know because of how competitive this environment is, to get in it first is tough, to stay in it even tougher. But also, if I don't do a good job and I don't get work, I can't provide. That's essentially what it boils down to. And that mentality from, as a young player, you need to work hard, you need to progress to get into the first team. I've needed to work hard to progress to take what was a part-time and ad hoc gig into what is now a full-time gig. And if I want to stay here and keep providing, I need to perform. So it's no different. And, that sounds like a lot of pressure. And I guess it is because, like I said, it's a competitive environment. Loads of people want to work in the media and there's only so many jobs. The opportunities that BT gave me in the instance, like when I first retired, it was the start of the Rugby World Cup 2019. So actually lots of the main guys were away working. So there were plenty of opportunities. And I hope that I took them enough for them to keep asking me back when there were gaps to fill in. I think if I hadn't have done a decent job, they might not have asked me back. And that's it. Because at that stage, it was very ad hoc. You don't know when the next opportunity is going to come. So you want to make sure that you take the ones you're given so that you get given more. And that, say, what wasn't out of fear, it was out of, I guess, a necessity to know that if this is going to be a career, you need to show progression, you need to show development, and you need to show that you can do it. You just got to get stuck in. You've got to take that first step, have a go, ask for feedback, learn, and then go again when you're given the next one, and try and show then that you've taken that feedback on board, and then make the most of the next opportunity you're given. You know, that first commentary, I'd done radio previously, so I guess without realizing it, I'd had a bank of commentary under my belt, so that helped. But in terms of live TV, in terms of being up in the gantry and that was a new experience. So again, you get there early, ask as many people, as many questions as you need to. How do I do this? How do I do that? And like I say, you go, you do a job, ask, was that okay? Anything I can do better? How did you find it? And then you hope that you get another phone call. I mean, it literally is, you've just got to get stuck in and get going. I think, I tried to tell myself a lot at that time. I mean, it's an old phrase, but one I just kind of reworked for me. I was like, I've got nothing to lose and everything to gain from just getting stuck in and having a go, from sending 1,000 annoying emails to different producers, execs saying, can we have a meeting? Can I work on this game? Anything, any opportunities? Following that up with more texts, more phone calls saying, anything going this weekend? You need me? Because it's only to your benefit. And if you don't do it, somebody else will. So you've got to get stuck in.
So you said that the media and coaching was something you've always wanted to do. After retirement, did you have a plan?
I had a plan, I think, and I guess you asked me earlier about my agent. You know, he was actually, if I think back now, he was very helpful in terms of, right, we're getting to the stage where we just need to think about what you're going to do, what route you're going to take. So in terms of the coaching, it was to make sure I got my level 3 badge, make sure I had a good bank of experience under my belt, so that if the time came where I was like, right, I want to go into a coaching role, and his words were, you might get a role as Topsy the player, but before long, you're going to need to establish yourself as Topsy the coach, someone who's put the time and the effort in to establish himself and not just rely on his reputation. So spending time at different clubs, learning, really just getting an understanding of what life as a coach is like, so that when the time came, I could say, right, here's where I've coached. I've coached at, these 3-4 different clubs. I've done my badges as well. So I'm not just relying on what I did as a player. Actually, I'm genuinely serious about being a coach. The media side was very much the same. It was, right, okay, who do I need to speak to or talk to start making inroads? Reached out to a couple of friends. Ugo Monye put me in touch with some guys at BT. Spoke to loads of guys working in the game, Chris Jones at BBC, Nick Heath as well, a load of different other people, just to say, right, how do I start making inroads into this? And everybody was incredibly helpful, so helpful in terms of time, in terms of tips, how to do it, how to get started. And then you get started. You start by doing reporting, you start by doing radio stuff, putting yourself forward. So on a match day, all the players will have a list of duties, but there'll always be local radio. So I was like, well, if I'm not playing, go and do some local radio, go and do some summarising, just give yourself some practice, so that when the time comes, they can say, right, have you done this before? Actually, yeah, I've done quite a lot of commentary, so I'm ready to kind of make that next step up into live TV and beyond.
Mental health, mental fitness. What early days, like 2003, what was kind of the mentality towards that?
Honestly, I'd say very non-existent. It was, I'd probably say, a much harsher environment. It was a sink or swim environment. It was your classic toughen up, man up. It was, this is how we do it, very militant. You either prove that you can handle it or somebody else will. And there were times you'd get pushed to your limit, but it was all a test of resolve, resilience, dealing with adversity. The mental health side was non-existent would be the best way of describing it. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't a subject. Mental strength in terms of dealing with pressure of playing, yes, but in terms of personal mental health, mental fitness, no, it was sink or swim. I've always been a very calm, very reserved person. Takes would take a lot to really rattle my cages. Did happen a few times. But you don't know any different at the time, because that's the way the culture is. It's the way the environment is. So, we've got, I guess at the time of the academy, 2003, 18 to 20 boys, 17, 18-year-old boys in the academy. And it was, if you want to get into the first team, if you want a first team contract, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to go through. We're going to test you. We're going to push you. And you either push through and make it, or you don't and you leave. And it was as cutthroat as that. There was no grey area. It was black and white. This is what it is.
When you say rattle your cage,
I guess the big ones that I can remember off the top of my head were my work rate, effort being put into question. I remember one game in particular. We played Worcester, and we did the review, and my physicality in that game was called into question. And I pushed back because the video evidence from the game, every team does video analysis, the evidence was there. And the coach came at me in a meeting saying, you weren't physical enough, you missed 2 tackles in particular, he called out. And I said, well, what about the other 10 tackles I did make? And actually the 2 tackles he called out, they were what you'd call neutral tackles. So not dominant, but neutral. Okay, which in my eyes, neutral is okay. Obviously you would push for dominant, but it was actually okay. You've highlighted the 2 incidences where, okay, it wasn't what you wanted. What about the other 10? So I think pushback without credibility, without evidence, that was probably one thing that pushed my buttons. So, but lo and behold, there was a response in training, played well the next week. He singled me out for a good performance, and I was like, it's really annoying, because you think you've achieved that now as a coach, you've kind of rattled my cages, you've got a response, got a performance the next week, and now you get a pat on the back. So that was one that you could tell stands out today. I remember it very vividly. But yeah, generally speaking, calm-natured, fairly reserved, and that was the environment. You just want to play every weekend. So if a coach that is making that decision has an opinion, you have to change it, because ultimately, if you push back, he might just say, okay, you're not playing this weekend, and you lose out. So it was okay, that's what you think, I'm going to prove you wrong. And you just go out and do that. That's almost all you can do. I can't think of a scenario whereby you could argue your point to make a coach change his mind and be on your side. It might happen, maybe more so now, but at that time it was, this is my opinion, I'm sticking to it. And you can sulk about it, get upset about it, or you can kind of react and, go, all right, I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to show you actually your opinion is wrong, and go out and do a job. And I guess, thinking again about it now, in my head at the time, it wasn't a long thought out process. It was like, okay, let's get to work, right? You're having it now, here we go. And it does rattle you. It does obviously put a bit more pressure on you. But in that situation, in a lot of sporting situations, all you can do in response, really, the best form of response is just to go out and perform and show whatever accusation is thrown at you that it's wrong, that it's false.
So with all that being said, have you ever hidden emotions out of fear of what a coach is going to think, or due to selection?
Yeah, I'd say so, for sure. You do, because again, we touched on it briefly about, mental health and mental well-being and all of that. It wasn't a emotional environment, so to speak. People would get angry, they'd get frustrated, but you just had to deal with it. Nobody really talked about anything. Nobody really addressed it too much. It was just, if you've ever got an emotion, you've just got to show it on the pitch. That's how you do it, whether that's in training or in games, that's your outlet. It wasn't really something that was spoken about. So there would have been a lot of instances, probably. I can't think of any right now, but where you just have to bury it, suck it up and deal with it. And that was the environment. It was rugby at that time. It was, like I say, sink or swim.
Do you think that had a detrimental effect on the group?
I don't know. I really don't know. It would, on individuals, possibly yes, I'd say so. But like I say, with the way it was, you would never ever have known. You know, people would have just taken it to heart, kept it inside, and taken it elsewhere, and channeled it in a completely different way that I wouldn't be able to tell you. You know, it's probably tough to now, you look back and think, was it right? But at the time, it's almost what was right for that time, because that's just how it is. And that's how everybody got on with it. And it was week to week, day to day. That's just what you did. So it, quote unquote, worked then, because things still ticked along. You got to the weekend, you played game. But I imagine if you got most of the players in that era, sorry, and you sat them down and asked them to think back, they'd probably say, actually, I probably took a lot of stuff home and just buried it and just got on with it, because that was all I could do.
When was the last time you cried?
I'd say, I don't know if I cried, but the passing of the Queen recently hit me a bit. I guess it's a funny one. It's only when somebody dies that you see the impact that they had. You see people coming together and celebrating their life. You know, you don't really do that when they're alive, unless they're like huge occasions. You know, obviously she had the Jubilee and that, but seeing all of that and actually saying, you know, that is somebody's mum, grandmother who's in her 90s, and then you see kind of the impact that she had. I took my kids to Windsor Castle, so we went and we laid some flowers, and it makes you just think about, obviously in my lifetime she has been Queen, and I won't see another Queen in my lifetime. So that whole period from kind of the Thursday, Friday, there were moments where you're like, wow, this is a really big moment. That's the last time I could probably say I was close to, but before that it's been a long time.
When do you think it was before then?
In my granddad's funeral, that would be the last time I can think of. Yeah, again, any time somebody dies, it's quite emotional, and obviously that was my dad on my mum's side as well, and you know, with all the family around her, I know obviously she was upset about it, and that resonates on you as well. Yeah, that would have been the last time. Something my wife says to me a lot, you know, you don't talk enough, you don't tell me enough stuff, which is fine. Something I know I do. My dad does it as well, so I don't know. Maybe it's a Ojo thing on the men's side. My older brother's the same. My younger brother probably very similar too. I think we're trying to get better at that. But then I'd also say that at any point, if any of us needed to, you know, drop of a pin will be there, drop of a hat, like, you know, it is, if you need me, I will be there, I will drop everything and I will get to wherever I'm needed. And I guess that is family, isn't it? You know, you can go through whatever you go through, but when push comes to shove, or when something goes down, you're like, right, where do you need me? What do you want? I'm coming.
So how comes do you think you don't share that much, or you talk about things?
Just how I've been for forever that I've known, you know. I've always been probably the quieter out of, let's say, my brother's always been known as the quiet one. I guess, is that a middle son thing? I don't know. But yeah, it's just, is it a man thing that, you know, we just tend to just get on with it? I'd probably say that, in that you just get on with it. You're used to just dealing with things and getting on with it. Don't ask too much, don't say too much. Just inherent, I guess. And if that's kind of all you've known, then it takes a conscious shift to change that. And that's, again, it's something you can, until you recognize it, it's just who you are, it's just how you are. So it's how you operate, it's how you behave. So it takes a bit of a shift to then go and change that.
So, you know, obviously the trend now, everyone's talking more about their emotions,
Yeah.
etc. Does it feel uncomfortable to do so for you? If it's been such a thing of your mentality's been for such a long time, just deal with it?
I'd say if you'd asked me some time ago, I couldn't put an exact frame on it. I might have said yes, but right now I'd say no, definitely not. Again, maybe that is the change in the shift. Things are different, and it's okay to be different. It's okay to share. It's okay to talk. There's no weakness in it. It's healthy, and it means you actually get to the root of things. And you actually, especially if there are any problems or issues, you get to them before they become something big, something really serious. So, if somebody asks how things are going, they might be okay, but actually you can then give context of, this is all right, but actually I'd like to do this, I'd like to do that, I wish this was better, I wish that was better. Are you tired? Are you stressed? Are you hangry? Like, whatever it is, it's like, I think with the environment now, it's actually better to do it that way because you get more out of it. So yeah, I'd say I definitely changed in that front, that it's less, yeah, I'm okay, I'm good. It is, if I am, I will say that because that's how I am and that's okay. But if I'm not, I can also say and pinpoint why as well. I think that's the other thing.
Do you think there's like a lot of clarity that you've got of you understand your emotions and?
Yeah, and again, that's been a shift. Case in point, working with LooseHeadz, but also a bit of stuff I've done through lockdown around mentoring. So obviously, talked previously about me really enjoying coaching and that being a path, but kind of lockdown made me sit back and think a bit. And I looked at the game, I looked at what I'm doing, and I thought, right, there's some brilliant coaches out there around the technical side on the pitch, but actually there's a sphere away from the pitch in terms of understanding life as a professional, what it takes to get to the top, just dealing with adversity, excuse me, that maybe wasn't being addressed. So I really looked at the mentoring side of things, and it meant that I could do more, not just within sport, but actually outside of sport as well. They'll have some great coaching in and around them, but actually who is helping them deal with life as a professional? Dealing with injury, dealing with non-selection, dealing with, am I actually still enjoying the sport? That was another big push in it. It felt just prior to lockdown and all of that, a few too many people leaving the game saying, I'm just not enjoying it anymore. And for somebody who had a long career, who really had an enjoyable career, I was like, that shouldn't really be the case.
What do you think could be done or needs to be done to keep that retention higher?
I guess the big one, and it's the environment that you create, it's the memories that you create for these guys coming through, so that whether they leave the club to go on to university and that and come back, they want to come back because of the feeling that they had when they left and the people that were there when they left. I think that's it. I think COVID kind of made people reassess how much they were committing to rugby in terms of training time, commuting time, and I know the RFU have kind of restructured the leagues to kind of negate that, which is a good step, I think. But ultimately, it's down to that club environment. It's down to understanding, like I said, it's not a professional environment, it is an amateur environment. We want to create an environment whereby you feel happy, you feel loved, you feel surrounded by like-minded people, but also where you can just go out and enjoy your rugby with your mates, go play well, win, lose, have some social time afterwards as well, drink, don't drink, whatever, but just be around a club environment. I think, you talk to most people in rugby, it's about the people in there, and if you can create an environment that people want to be in, they'll come back, or well, they're less likely to leave, but if they have to leave for whatever reason, they'll want to come back because you go, I miss that place, I miss the people that were there. So that is the big one. I think if you can do that consistently, I think the game's in a tough spot at the minute, especially with things around, concussion and CTE and the cases that are coming out. But again, if you can go back to the environment, and we do need to coach kids from a young age to, I guess, tackle safer and be safer, because this isn't something that's going away anytime soon. But kids still love the game. We still love the game. We still enjoy the game, and we want it to continue to have longevity. We want kids to keep coming through to playing it. So if you can create an environment that is both safe and enjoyable, but is still rugby, because kids get into rugby because they like the contact element of it as well. Like, you know, it's one of the few sports where you can just physically get stuck in and get rid of any kind of emotion or whatever you're feeling and do it in a legal and safe manner. So if we can kind of emphasize those qualities, you go halfway to retaining people and allaying any fears that there might be currently around the sport.
You've got a friend and they've come to you feeling a bit lost, feeling down. What would you suggest to them? What would you say to them?
Is a tough one. You know, almost you think everything we've spoken about around, you know, men in particular wanting to open up and share that. I think the first thing I guess I would do, having learned what I've learned, is just to let them know that I'm here, whenever they need me. Reach out and I'm here. I will help as best as I can in any way that I can, but you can't force it on that person. So you just have to kind of let them know, say, look, mate, I'm here. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. And whatever you need from me, I'm here. I think, is it a male thing? I guess maybe it's a people thing whereby, you know, we spoke about it earlier. You just take it in and you think you have to deal with it on your own and you just want to get stuck with it. But actually, once you get to a point whereby you can just tell one person, you can then start to help. And that's it. I think letting people know that help is there is the biggest first step. Like, you're not on your own in this. So whenever you're ready, I'm here. And once you kind of cross that first bridge, then you can get to work trying to help out as best you can. I feel that something I've become more aware of in my role since retiring is letting people know that they can do what I'm doing and what I've done. There's a lot of stuff about, you know, I can't do what he's done because he played 16 years, or, you know, he got scouted in a way that I might not get scouted because of the school I went to. I think there's always a solution. There's always a way around a problem. And I kind of find part of my role now is to show the way to get things done, be that from a rugby playing perspective, getting into rugby, growing in rugby, so what I'm doing with my coaching, and even on the media side now, you know, how to get into media, how to get roles in the media, both in front of and behind the camera, kind of showing a bit of representation as well in terms of, you know, showing that actually there are diverse people in all forms of media and in coaching as well. In my school, you know, we talk about how do we make the school more diverse. Me just being there, getting stuck in, actually saying, you know, there is a way to get things done. I find that part of my role now, something I've definitely become more aware of, and something I think I really want to highlight because, you know, you mentioned the word fear earlier. It might be a reason why people don't aspire to do something, because they say, well, I can't do that. You know, he can because of who he is, but for me, that's not going to happen. Well, I think my role is to say, well, okay, my situation was mine, unique to me. Yours might be different, but why should that stop you? And if you think that's going to stop you, okay, why don't we figure out a way to break through?
Topsy, thank you so much.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.